This is Kevin from Budibase, and I want to show you how to build an inventory app for a tools store. Here I have my stock grouped by category. Each item I can click on to be able to see its detail and update its detail. I can search, so I can look for a brush and find that I do have a brush inside my painting supply. And I can see all the items that are low on stock and order more if I need to. The data already exists in a MySQL database, but let's see how we can build this from scratch. From the Budibase portal, I'll click on Create New App. I'll start from scratch and I'll call this my Tools Inventory App. I don't want to include the sample data, so I'll uncheck that box and create app. My data exists in a MySQL database, so I'll click on MySQL and click Continue. My Budibase instance is being run on Docker locally, and my database is local. So I'm going to change the host to host.docker.internal. And the database I want to use is Budibase_store. I'll save and fetch tables, and that's done. Now in our application, we want to group together our tools based on the category. So the first thing I want to do is to extract all of the categories so we can just get a list of those. And the most efficient way to do that is with a custom query. So I'll click on MySQL on the left, I'll scroll down and I'll add a query. This is going to be my category list. I'm going to set this to select category from products, which is where my categories are listed. Now if I run this query, I get a list of all the categories, but they're just being repeated as many times as they exist. So I will group by the category and they should now be unique. So I run the query again and I'll have a unique list of 5 categories. Brilliant. I'll save that query and now I can start to build my front end. So I click into the Design tab and in the home screen, I'm going to add a component, and the component I'll add is a repeater block. For my repeater block, I'll call this my category list. The data I wanted to listen to is my category list. And inside of this, I want to have a list of data cards. So I want to, for every category, there's 5 of them, I want to see a list of products under each of those categories. So to do that, I'm going to use the cards block. So now I have 5 cards blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's give them a title so they're easier to find out. So first of all, I'll name it. This will change what it says on the left-hand side. I'll just call this the product block. And the title is going to be dynamic. So I'll hit the lightning bolt and I'll set it to be category list, category, and I'll save. And then we get tools, safety equipment, painting supplies, and fasteners. So we've got the right categories, but do we have the right cards? Well, at the moment we don't. We've got all the cards. So inside my product block, I want to set the data to be from products. And then I want to define the filters, add a filter, and I want to filter the category to equal a binding because it's a dynamic value. And the binding is the category list category. So now I've got 8 tools, that looks about right, 3 bits of safety equipment, 1 piece of painting supplies, that looks pretty good. But it'd be even more helpful if I actually could see some information. So let's update the card details. So I'm still in the product block and on the right hand side, I'm looking at the cards here. So what's the title going to be? So I'll hit the lightning bolt, delete what's there already, and I'll hit product block, product name, and save. For the subtitle, I'll delete what's there already, product block, category. For the description, lightning bolt, delete what's there already, product block, description. And for the image URL, lightning bolt, product block, image, and save. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We've got lots of things going on there. That's looking great. So the next thing I'll do is I'll just click at the horizontal because I prefer the image to the left rather than up above. Okay. So now we can see our tools grouped by category. The next thing I want to happen is that when I click on one of these tools, I want it to open a side panel that's going to give us some detail. So I'll first of all add a side panel and I'll drag it up to make sure it's at the top level. And this is going to be our product detail side panel. Product detail side panel. And what I want to happen is when I click on one of these cards, I want that card to set a state variable that will open up this side panel. And I want this side panel to show the data based on that state variable. So let's start on the card. So in product block, if I scroll down, there's a click action. So two things I want to do in define actions. I want to set a state variable. So update state, set variable. I'm going to call this current product. And I'll set the value to be lightning bolt, product block, product ID. And I'll save. But the other action I want to happen is to open that side panel. So open side panel, which side panel? The product detail one. So now when I click on any of these, the state variable will be updated and the side panel will appear from the side. But what's the side panel going to show? So we want our product detail panel to look into the table of products and use the ID that we've set in state to get details about it. So let's find that. So we'll use a data provider. This is going to be our product detail provider. The table we want to look up for is the products, and we want to filter. Filter we want to have is that the product ID should equal a binding of the state current product, and save. We don't want to paginate because there should only be one record, and now we can add some detail in. We'll add in our headline first. So headline is going to be our product detail heading. Lightning bolt is going to be product detail provider, rows.0.product name. And then in parentheses after that, we'll do rows.0.category, and we'll save. Next, we'll have an image. So add component image. This will be our product detail image. Lightning bolt again, product detail provider, rows.0.image, and we'll save. Looks good. The last thing we want then is an update form. So we'll add component, form block. We'll say we want a product detail update form. We'll name it. That's going to be of update type. The schema is going to be for the products. The row ID is going to match the state ID. So let's preview it. Get our details. We click on it. Form and details are being populated on the right hand side. Let's scroll down. Let's say we wanted to update the steel beams to say unpainted steel beams. We'll save that, and then it's going to appear there, unpainted steel beams. Okay, the next thing I want to add in is our search bar. So let's think about how we're going to handle that. I'm going to put a container at the top to be able to manage our search bar. Call this my search container. And inside of my search container, I'm going to add a heading, which is going to say search heading. I've just been named my app, so inventory. And below that, I'm going to add a form. Not a form block this time because we don't want it to actually do anything. Effectively, we want a text field that's going to set a state variable as it changes. Text fields have to be inside of forms. So this form is really just here to contain our text field. So I'll put a form in here. I'll call it search form. I don't really need to know anything about these other details, the type, the schema, or the size. I'll leave those for now. Inside of my search form, I'll add a text field, and this is going to be my search field. I'm going to name it search field. I'm going to give it a placeholder of search inventory, and then I'm going to set an action for its on change. So I'll click define actions, and what I want it to do is set a state variable. So update state, set a variable. This is going to be our search value. And the value is going to be the value of the search field. So click on lightning bolt, search field, field value, and we'll save and save. So as we are searching now, as we're typing in, this is changing our state value. And what I want to happen is for these cards to filter themselves based on that search field. So I'll go into define filters in my product block. It already has a filter for my category. I'll add another one. This time I want to check is the product name like the binding of that state variable. So lightning bolt, state, search value, and save. Let's preview on the front end and check. So let's search for brush. And sure enough, we get a brush in the painting supplies. Let's search for pliers. Got some on tools. And then if it's blank, we get all of our data back again. We have all of our products grouped by category. We have the ability to get the detail of a single product, and we have the ability to search within our page. The last thing I want to add is a low stock warning and the ability to re-up our stock if it has got low. So I'm going to need to know a little bit more about my data for that. my data has three tables. My products table, which got a list of products, their details and their product ID. My inventory table that maps between my product ID and my inventory ID and tells me where that product is stored and how many of them are stored. So a single product could have multiple inventory entries. So we need to aggregate those details. So we'll add a custom query by going to MySQL, add query, and this is going to be our low stock query. It's going to give us all of our stock, but we'll filter on the front end. So I'm going to select the sum of the quantities, and I'll call that total quantity. I'm going to do that from our inventory table, and then I'm going to group it by the product ID. So I should probably include the product ID so I can see that detail. Okay, so with that, I've got the total quantity and each of the product IDs. But I want more detail. I want all of the details I need for the card, the product name, the product description, and all those other things. They're not my inventory table, they're my product table. So I'm going to need to join my products table. So join products, and then how am I joining them? On inventory.product ID, which is the same as products.product ID. Now, what other fields do I want? So I've got the sum, the total quantity, the product ID. What else do I want? Well, I want the products.product name, and I'll have that as product name. Products.description, products.image, products.category. Okay, let's run that query. Product ID exists on both tables, so in my group by, I need to do inventory.product ID. And in my product ID, I need to pick one of those, so I'll do inventory.product ID, and I'll just make sure it just is called product ID. It'll be the same on both tables. Okay, so that looks good. In my schema, I just want to make sure my total quantity is a number so that I can do less than checks on it later on. Everything else looks fine. I'll save the query, and now I'm ready to use that on the front end. Go back to my design tab, and I'm going to add another container just below my search bar, and this is going to be my low stock container. So inside of this container, I would like to have a data provider. The data provider is going to be my low stock data provider. It's going to have data from my low stock query, and it's going to filter this where we're going to have the total quantity is going to be less than or equal to 10. So we only want things that are less than or equal to 10. So for each of those, we want to loop over them. And the way we loop is by using a repeater. So I'll use a repeater inside of here, and I'm going to call this my low stock repeater. And inside of my repeater, I'm going to have a card. Now, the cards block will do this automatically. It's what we use down here. It does the repeating and it does the card. But we want to add some extra functionality later. And so this is shortcutting having to do that. So my low stock repeater and my new card, I'm going to call this my low stock card. And its title, lightning bolt, is going to be low stock repeater, product name. And I also want to have the quantity left. So in parentheses after it, I'll say low stock repeater, total quantity left. So we can see how dire the situation is. The subtitle is going to be the category. So let's delete that, low stock repeater category, and save. And the description is going to be low stock repeater description, and we'll save. Lastly, we'll do our image, low stock repeater image, and looks great. I'll click horizontal again, and I don't like that it's all just on the left hand side. So in styles, I'm going to click width and change that to be 100%. So it takes up the width of the container it's in. So now we can see what's low stock. Maybe we'll put a heading above that so we can see that. So low stock container, we'll add a headline. It's going to say low stock headline. And the text is going to be items low on stock. Move it to be there. Awesome. Now the last thing I want to do is to have a button on my card that's going to order 10 more. So to order 10 more, that card needs to be part of a form. So I'm going to add a form and bring my low stock card underneath that. I'll call this my reorder form. This is going to be type create. It's fine. My low order card, I'm going to define a click action for that button. And I want it to save a row on the reorder form to the reorders table. And I can add some columns here dynamically. So I'm going to say I want the product ID to be the value of the low stock repeater product ID. And I want the quantity to be 10. So now when I click this button, it's going to order 10 more of this product. So let's just prove that that seems to work. Press this button, order 10 more, row has been saved. Row has been saved. That seems to have worked. I can check in my data it has worked. I'm going back to the data tab and checking the reorders table. So this is all sample data, so I'm going to delete this just to allow the rest of the example to work well. So back in design now. What happens here, I click order 10 and it says I've reordered, but on the front end, my user can't see how many have been reordered. There's a time when we've requested more, but they haven't been delivered yet. And so maybe 17 different users click the add order 10 more, and we end up with a whole load of extras. So what I would like to happen is for this to say 5 left, and then maybe after that, if there are some on order, maybe in square brackets, it's going to say 10 on order, something like that. But there's a bit of a problem because my reorders table might have multiple reorders for the same product, and we want to aggregate those as well. So aggregating, that means we're thinking about a custom query. So let's make a custom query. So MySQL, add query, and this is going to be my reorders. So what do I want to do for my reorders query? Well, effectively, I want to get the product ID and the sum of the quantities as total quantities. So I follow that same pattern, but this time from the reorders table, and only where the status equals requested. So there are a few other statuses, including delivered, but it's requested we care about. And then I want to group those by the product ID. So I'll run that query. It comes back empty. So what I'll do is I'll go to my front end and order 10 more. So now when I go to my back end and run that query again, I'll have that particular order that I've just created. So inside my reorder form, I'm going to add another data provider, which is going to show that reorder data. So I'll drag that inside here. I'll call this my reorder provider and bring my low stock card underneath it so it can access this data. And what is the data? So it's coming from my reorder query, and it's being filtered based on add filter, based on product ID being equal to the binding of the low stock repeater product ID. This whole tree is being repeated for each low stock item. So I'm saying, hey, give me a reorder form for each low stock item. Give me a provider for each low stock item and limit that just to the current restock item and then the low stock card. So now inside of the low stock card, I can use that data. And effectively what I want to do is I want to have a message after here in square brackets that's going to say 10 on order or some number on order. Okay, so let's do that. We'll change the title. We want to conditionally render if there is an item inside the reorder provider, we want to display some data. And to do that, we use handlebars conditional notation. So that's curly braces #if and our conditional. And to close off that block, it's curly braces /if. So if, what do we want to if? So the reorder provider rows.0.total quantity. So if that exists, then we want to render in square brackets that value, reorder total 0.total, that value is on order. Save. So we can see 5 left and 10 on order here, 6 left, but none on order yet. So when we click this button on this top card, we're saving the row. We wanted to refresh the data provider for our reorder provider, and we'll save. Let's preview this. Items low on stock, we've got a drill, 5 left, 10 on order. Tape measure, 6 left. We should order more of those. So I click on order 10 more, and it's going to tell me that there are 10 on order. If I click it again, they're now going to be 20 on order and so on. So there we have it. I have a database that tells me about the stock of my tool shop. And I can now search my tool stock. I can see which items are low on stock and reorder some more. And for any of the items which are grouped by category, I can update any of their details. This application is responsive. So if I was on a Pixel device, I'd be able to see looking pretty cool. If I was on an iPad, again, looking quite great. And then if I'm on a desktop, it's looking good as well. The ability to build applications like this allows us to quickly turn our data into action and get it in front of the people who need it to be able to do their jobs quicker and more effectively. So have fun building this application, or more likely adapting it to your use case. Take care. Bye.